Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Julie's Unknown Podcast. And today, what we are going to talk about are projectors from human design. So, I decided I wanted to do one episode on each human design type. And I'm going to start with projectors because I'm a projector and I feel like talking about projectors today. But there will be episodes on all the other types as well. So manifestors, many-gens, generators, and reflectors. Don't you worry. I will have an episode for you guys as well. So first, before we dive deep into talking all about projectors, if you do not know anything about human design, basically it is like an astrology chart, but a little bit different. It does take your date of birth, your time, and your location, and it creates this chart based on where the planets were at around that time of your birthday, and also about like 3-ish months before, and what the planets were happening there. And within these two dates, it creates this chart for you. Human design combines Kabbalah, I Ching, chakra system, astrology, and quantum physics. So a lot of old modalities that have been around for a really long time. Human design is a little bit newer, so it got introduced in like 1987 by Ra. He channeled it from a thing called The Voice, and he created this entire system. I love human design. For me, I found like it has really brought a lot of answers, a lot of clarity, a lot of understanding towards myself and who I am, but also towards others. And using it not only in my business, but I use it in my day-to-day life, in my relationships, like my friendships, in all aspects. So it's not just meant just for one area of life. I feel like sometimes like people will take it and they're like, oh, I only apply it into business, but not everywhere else. And it's like, no, it's all intertwined. Everything is connected. And there's one thing about learning about human design. And then there's another thing of like actually experimenting and trying it on and putting it into practice. And that's a whole other game. Like I'm going now into, like I've been I got introduced to human design 4 years ago. So now I'm year 4, and there's still so much I'm learning from like just even the basics, like the basics of like type, strategy, and authority, like what it means for me to be a projector, what it means for me to be self-projected projector, how does that look like in my life? And obviously every person's chart is going to be completely different. So notice everything I say. If there are some things that you're like, that doesn't work for me, or it just creates of like, no, you're not describing me. Just ask yourself one, like, what is it? Why does it not resonate? Why does it create this like feeling of like, like a trigger response or a negative reaction towards what I'm saying? So just get curious about it, but know that human design is an experiment. So you are here to experiment. You are here to try things on. You are here to see what works, what doesn't work, especially projectors and invitations. Like I am going to talk a whole chunk about invitations because I'm still learning what that means. And continue to learn. And sometimes it's clear, it's obvious, and you're like, yes, this is an invitation. And then other times it's not as clear, or other times you're not sure how to go about it. And so I am going to share a lot of my personal experience of what I've learned with invitations. But if you're listening, you go and try your own way as well and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And so there are 5 types in human design. There are manifestors, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And so today's episode, we are going to talk about projectors. So projectors are about 20% of the population. If you are a projector listening, hello, welcome. Welcome. We are the guides. And for those who are listening because they want to learn more about a projector, because either your partner is, your kids are, continue listening. And, I do find the non-sacral types, so manifestors, reflectors, and projectors tend to be the ones that I don't want to say like tend to be the ones that are mostly misunderstood because we don't have that sacral energy that the manifesting generators and generators have. And that the generators and manifesting generators are 70% of the population. So that is like basically what society has been built upon. And so here are the other types that are smaller percentages that, sometimes try to mold themselves to a manifesting generator and a generator and try to be that way, or a projector trying to be a manifester and initiate taking action. And we're all trying to fit into these boxes, and it's just like not working. So this is what I love about human design, is that it gives us these pillars, these signposts for us to use and kind of figure it out from there, right? Experiment, as I said earlier. So projectors are about 20% of the population. They are here to guide. Projectors have a very unique aura. The aura is penetrating. And so we see everything from the other, and that gives us the ability to guide. Now, because projectors, we do not have that sacral energy. We don't have that, like, go, go, go energy. We can only work for a certain amount of hours, and we need to be very careful with our energy. So ideally, they say that projectors are meant to work 4 to 6 hours a day. Now, obviously, if you're listening and you have an 8-hour work day, either two things can happen. Either you're going to be like, oh my God, that sounds like me. I wish I can have 4 to 6 hours. Or your response can be, well, what do you mean? Like, that's impossible. Like, I can work 8 hours, no problem. So again, it's an experiment, and I am going to go into the different types of projectors, which will make a little bit more sense in a minute. If it resonates for you to work 4 to 6 hours a day, see how you can bring that into your life. See how you can play around with that, and see how you can manifest it if that is something you're not doing. There are many jobs, and trust me, I've done them. There's many jobs and ways that you can make tons of money and still just work 4 to 6 hours a day. And this is just, you got to put it out there, right? Because like, if only in your vision you see that 8-hour workday or 10-hour workday as a possibility, then that's what is going to be presented to you. But if you get curious to see maybe more is available, you'll never know what can come through. So just like a few examples, so before I found out like that I was a projector and the 4 to 6 hour workday, I was working. I have worked in an office. I worked in restaurant industry. I've worked in retail, and all these jobs that require 8 hours, sometimes 10-hour shifts. Sometimes I used to do doubles. Like back in my 20s, I would like have more than one job, and I would do doubles, like day shift at one place, evening shift at another place, and grab a Red Bull halfway through to keep going. And that's all I knew. And I only knew the 8-hour workday. Then I found out about human design. And it was while I was like building my business. And once I had left the restaurant industry and the real retail industry, I decided to get curious because I knew I still needed a support in my income in order to build my business so that I can feel secure and in my finances and being able to pay my bills. So I started to get a little more curious of like, what is available? Like, what can I do that doesn't require me to work that long? And this is where the universe presented to me Airbnb cleaning. And I do live in a tourist town, so there are tons of Airbnbs and housekeeping positions. And those are like, it can be like 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 6 hours. Very rarely, every now and then I would have like an 8-hour day where I would have more than one clean. But I was able to create my own schedule and pick which cleans I wanted, how many I wanted in a day. So if I actually did want a 2 hour, 4 hour day, I was able to have that. And I picked cleans based on getting paid per unit versus per hour. So the thing is with us projectors is that when we do work those 4 to 6 hours, we are very efficient. We can get a lot of things done. So if you are listening to this and you do have an 8 hour workday and you work in an office, in the moment when you're in the flow, not when you're tired or towards the end of your day, or maybe in the morning when you're like first getting up, but in that period of your work day where you are in the flow, you are pretty efficient and you get a lot of things done in a short amount of time compared to some of the other types. And that is like, we do have that sense of efficiency as projectors. So, and obviously, depending on what type of work you have, and different projectors have different strengths. And for me to be able to work Airbnb cleaning, like I was really fast. Like I got shit done so fast. So because I was getting paid per unit, it allowed me to like, make more money in a shorter period of time because of my efficiency. And so this is just one example. Another example is like I ended up like finding another job that I was like doing packaging. And in that job, they said, you can have a 4 hour day or a 7 hour day. And so sometimes I would pick the 4 hour day, and then other times I'll do the 7 hour. Now, if you are doing longer days and you are a projector and you're like, there's no way in my life that I'm going to have a 4 to 6 hour day, it's not going to happen. That's all good. Keep listening. I guide you to keep listening. What's the important thing is that what do you do before and after your workday, but also what do you do during your breaks? So this is where you can refuel your energy. And so what is your morning routine like when you're going to work? Are you rushing? Are you like basically showering, getting breakfast to go and rushing out the door? Or are you taking your time? And so this is where maybe creating a more slower, calmer morning routine to slowly get your energy going. And then you go to work and you start your workday. What do you do during your breaks or your lunch hours? Do you get up and walk around? Do you have a break, or do you push through and keep going? And so sometimes with us projectors is that we don't know when enough is enough. We don't know when to stop. And so this is where you can put a timer, wherever you are working, a timer to take a break, a timer to step away. And the stepping away can be as simple of like, just going somewhere quiet where you're by yourself, you're not plugging into anybody's energy around you, and either have a coffee, lie down, take a couple of deep breaths, do some breath work, whatever it is that makes you feel good and that can replenish your energy. And sometimes it is as simple as a 20-minute power nap too. Like if that is available, I know that sometimes some offices are starting to add napping stations. I've heard that's a thing, which is amazing for us projectors. We love that. But even if you are not a napper, like just lying down, like, or taking a moment to sit, not scrolling on your phone, but just like being in your own calm, quiet energy. And then after, what do you do at the end of your work shift? So that is also important. Like, how do you like replenish your energy? Like, do you, right away go, continue doing like the next thing, and like, you're running, you're getting groceries, you're doing this, you're that, and you're not actually stopping till like maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night? Or are you slowing down after? So this is where you can, after work, like go home, chill for a bit, or, do your errands, but then go home and chill for a bit. And things such as like napping, lying down, reading a book, taking a bath, going in a hot tub, a sauna, anything that is like in our own little bubble, our own little space, like projectors, we do refuel when we are by ourselves because we're not plugging into other people's energy. Meditating is another one. Are you implementing any of those? And you don't have to implement them all. You can like pick and choose whichever one you desire, whichever one you feel called to. But that's just a way that you can bring that in of what you do at the end of your workday. Now, this is also important for those who do work 4 to 6 hours. It's like, how can you add these little things? Because yeah, maybe you're working 4 hours, but what are you doing before and after those 4 hours? Are you like running around with a, like with a like a chicken with his head caught up, or are you actually like inputting and blocking, putting in blocks of time where you're just lying down for 10 minutes, or you're meditating, or you're taking a bath, or you're, going to a spa if, that is like something that you love to do. So what are those things that you're doing to replenish it? I personally I love doing crossword puzzles, like doing in the morning, and I never really finish them, but that's besides the point. It's just, for me, it is relaxing and it's calming, and it's just like, kind of sitting down and using that. So speaking of energy, like there are 3 energy types of projectors. So we got the energy projectors, and we have classic projectors, and then we have the mental projectors. And the difference with all of these, so the energy projectors, that means you have like more than one motor center defined. So the centers, if you are new to human design, they're basically the shapes in your chart. And there are motor centers, and those are what has more energy. What creates more energy. So for example, like the sacral, like even the projectors, we don't have the sacral defined, but the sacral center is a motor center and is also an energy center. So those of you who are energy projectors may have the solar plexus, the heart, the root, any of those 3, all of them, or one each, those define. So if you are an emotional authority projector, or an ego projector, then and like also if you have if you're a splenic projector, but you might have one of the motor centers defined, then you have more energy than the other types of projectors. Because you have that motor center, and that motor center gives you more energy. So you may be able to do more of a 6 to 8 hour workday compared to a classic projector or a mental projector. Now, the classic projector does not have any motor centers defined. So that can be like, you could be self-projected projectors such as myself, or you could be splenic. Yeah, they don't, no other motor center defined. And then the last one, so like, yeah, so the classic projectors, like we have like, we can have a good amount of energy, but still like that 4 to 6 hours, we need to be a little bit more mindful, not as much energy as the energy projectors. And then the last one we got is the mental projectors. Now, mental projectors, what you guys have is either the throat, ajna, head center defined, so everything above defined. So most likely your authority is soundboarding, environmental. And so you don't have any inner authority, meaning like no inner feeling of like how to make a decision with your authority. So yeah. So basically you have that. So mental projectors, you have even, you don't have the same amount of energy as an energy projector. So those are the 3 types of projectors. And so the thing is with projectors, because we don't have like all that energy, our strategy is to wait for an invitation. So the reason why we wait for invitation, there's so much to this. One is because like we cannot guide everybody. We don't have that energy to guide everybody, and we are here to guide a certain group of people, whatever those people are. And guiding people, that can be anything. It can be you are a coach, or a holistic practitioner. You run your own business that way, and you're a projector. Or guiding could be you are a mentor, you are a project manager, you are, a team leader. in a restaurant, that is, and you guide a certain group of people. Now, we need to wait for the invitation, because that means, like, then that way what we say and like what we guide with, like, it like actually lands. So how many times have you given advice or guidance to someone and there was no invitation, and the response was very harsh? Like, either they shut you off, they like they don't want to hear it, or maybe they listen but they're triggered, they're not happy, with what you're saying. And waiting for the invitation also works with, like, giving advice to your friends and family too. It's not just, just like a general, like, wait for the invitation, like, for you to have a client, or, from your team members at work. It also works in with that, with personal relationships. And so it is important for us to be aware of that, because nobody likes unsolicited, can't speak, unsolicited advice. Nobody really likes that. So with a projector, it's like tenfold, because there's no invitation. So the energy, it's like people are like, no, 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 like, get out of my get out of my space, right? Don't forget, we have the penetrating aura. So we go into their aura. And if there's like, they're not welcome to it, they're like, no, 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 get away from me. Like, and it's energetically, right? Like, sometimes it's like, obviously mentally and emotionally, but then other times it's just more energetically, and they're just like, no, please stand back, give me my space. And so when it comes to invitations, it can be a little tricky, and this is where you can play around with it, because invitations look differently for everybody, and it looks differently from situations to situations. Like, no invitation looks the same. It's not obvious all the time. Sometimes it is obvious. Sometimes it's like right there in front of your face, and it's like, somebody comes to you and it's like, I want your advice. And sometimes it's as obvious as that, which is amazing. And you're like, sweet, want your advice. But then other times it's tricky, and you still got to put yourself out there to create the invitation. So I have noticed for myself that it is a balance of creating invitations and a balance of, like, surrendering and waiting to receive an invitation. It is a balance of the two. It is not just sitting at home doing nothing and being like, okay, all the invitations come to me. Like, you still need to put yourself in situations, in areas, in ways to make those invitations happen, so that people can see your gifts as a projector. And then that way they go to you and they're like, I know you're known for this, or I know you can help me with this, so please help me. So I guess I'll give like different examples of invitations. So let's start with like more like personal. So as projectors, like, we would have our friends and family who love to come to us to talk about whatever they desire to talk about, like their problems, what they're going through, what they're navigating. But sometimes people just want to talk. So this is where, as a projector, it is important to ask, like, would you like my advice? Would you like my guidance? Because so many times, because we see something the other types don't. We see something like a solution to a problem, or like like kind of like a path to wherever they are. Like, let's say they're at a fork in the road. We see the path for them to take, and we're like, no, you got to take this. But we need to wait for that invitation. So asking and being like, hey, would you like my advice? Would you like to hear what I have to say? And if the response is no, we need to honor that. We need to honor that, even if we know that they're like saying no out of fear or a trigger, or, like, they're just like, we need to honor that, because maybe they're not at a place to hear it. Right? Maybe it's not a place where it's going to land. And we need to trust that. We need to trust when the invitation gets denied. We need to trust that it's not like by forcing it, by saying it. It's not always going to be the outcome we would want for them, because someone who's receiving guidance from a projector wants to make sure it lands. And I always say, like, and even like when people do ask me for guidance and advice, I always say, like, take it or leave it. Like, this is like what I'm seeing. This is what I want. But we need to be able to, like, give the guidance, give the advice, and let it go. They may not take it. They may not do anything with it. And we need to let that go, that everybody's on their own journey. Everybody's in their own process. And sometimes they need to go through the shit. Like, they need to make a wrong, or, well, I don't want to say a wrong decision. That's not the right word using. But they sometimes need to make another decision other than the guidance you gave them, because there's a lesson that they need to learn. So we need to trust all of that. All of that. And it is so hard for a projector, because we're like, we want to, like, we see it. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, no, go that way, go left, not right, or go straight, not back. But we have to trust that. And it's challenging. But I always say, like, everybody's on their own journey, everybody's on their own path. And I'm going to do my very best of who I am as a projector and in my world, and what I desire to do, on how I desire to help people. But I trust that eventually they'll figure it out, hopefully. And if they don't, well, then that's they're on their own path, and there's only so much I can do. I can't sit there and take everybody by the hand and, like, be like, okay, come on, let's go, And that is, like, related to codependency. And us projectors can have some codependency with others, because we do want to help others so badly. But then also the codependency comes in, where we want to be seen and recognized. So this is where really diving into codependency is very interesting for projectors, but that's like another podcast on its own. But I want to throw that in there, that we can be very codependent to other people as projectors for those reasons. Now, back to invitations. So another thing about invitations is that to share our gifts, we don't necessarily need an invitation all the time. So what does that mean? Like, if you are an entrepreneur and you're running your own business, you don't need an invitation to create a website. You don't need an invitation to post a post on Instagram. You don't need an invitation to share a reel. Share the reel, post a post, create your website. Those things, just, you got to put yourself out there for people to find you, to give you the invitations. And so things like that, if you're saying, I'm waiting for the invitation for somebody to tell me to, like, post about something, like, just share it. Just share it. Because one thing that somebody told me, those who follow you on Instagram, that is an invitation on its own. Now, doesn't mean that you need to go and DM all those people and all of a sudden say, hey, buy my services. No, that's not what that means. It means that they've accepted the invitation has been accepted by them following you, and they see your content. And so therefore you can post whatever feels alignment and feels right, and that excites you and it brings you joy, and whatever it is that you want to post on there. As I'm getting my thoughts together. brain stopped working. So whatever you want to post on there, and they read it, and they may like it, may comment, may not, right? But that's like kind of like one invitation already given. But doesn't mean that invitation is there for you to go into their DMs and be like, hey, buy my shit, because there is no invitation for that. You can create a story and you can say, hey, this is what I offer. If you want more details, send me a DM. That may be one way for it to work for you. Like, but then again, it works differently for others. Or I sometimes create polls, like I'll create polls, like, or I'll put like the box of being like, if you want to learn more, put your email there. And this is where, and then you're creating the invitation. And so then you're getting, people to come to you, and you're like, okay, here it is. So that's, that what I wanted to say about that. Same thing, like if you're working, if you're working in an office, like you don't need to have an invitation for every project idea, because sometimes you have an idea for a project, or or even if you're working at a restaurant, an idea to do something different, for example. But like, how are people going to be able to read your brain to say, oh, please tell me about this idea? Sometimes you won't get that invitation. Other times you will. Other times it will be so clear of somebody being like, tell me what you think. Tell me how to fix this. Tell me how to solve this. But other times it won't. And so this is where you ask, and asking is what creating the invitation. Asking is like, that's where you create it. And you say like, hey, you go to your employer, you go to your boss, you go to the owner of the company, whatever it is, whoever's your superior, and you say, I got this idea. Here's the gist of it, like maybe like a 2-3 sentence of like giving them an idea of what it's all about. Would you be interested to learn more? Would you be interested to hear about it? And then you're creating the invitation, and this is where they have the opportunity of saying yes or no. Again, if they say yes, run with it. And not, there's your invitation. If it's no, trust it. Trust the no. Trust the no, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're right. Trust it. Either there'll be another opportunity, maybe 6 months down the line, or 3 months down the line. They might be like, hey, didn't you have that idea? And there's your invitation. And so that's how it could look like. Now, applying for jobs or reaching out to, okay, so this can work for many things. Like this part can work for like, either it's applying for jobs, applying to be part of like an event, like collaborating with people. You can go and reach out to collaborate, to apply for a position, to be part of an event. You can reach out. Yeah, like, and it doesn't mean like sitting back and being like, oh, they're all gonna find me. Yeah, sometimes they will find you. Sometimes they'll like, land on your, like LinkedIn profile, or they'll find your Instagram or your website, and they're like, wow, I like what this person's doing. I like what this person's talking about. I would love them to be part of this event. I would love to invite them to come be a speaker here, or I would love for them to work for my company. Yes, sometimes those happen. Of course, you are a projector. They do come to you. Invitations happen. Invitations come to you all the time. But doesn't mean that you need to stop yourself from doing the thing if you really want to if you really want to be part of something, if you really want to collaborate, if you really want to be part of an event. So this is where, and I know that this is something I personally like have done to myself. So this is why I wanted to chat about it, is I remember like I was once like going out for a walk with my friend, and I was just like, oh, I would love to host more in-person workshops here in Whistler. But, like I haven't received the invitation, like, like nobody has actually like, suggested it. I haven't seen a sign for the universe. Like my friend's like, are you stopping yourself just because human design says that you need an invitation? And she's like, are you holding yourself back because of that? And it had me thinking, and I'm like, well, yeah, I was using human design as an excuse of like that obvious invitation. Like there wasn't an obvious invitation for me to do a workshop. And I was using that as an excuse. I was saying like, well, I'm a projector, so I got to sit back and wait for somebody to say, hey, Julie, why don't you do a workshop? And so she called me out on it, which I really appreciated it. And I was like, oh, you know what? Fine, I'll reach out. And that's what I did. I reached out to a yoga studio. I knew the owner. through previous connections, and I just reached out to her, and all I said, so this is a way for you to word it. Like, if you want to collaborate, if you want to be part of something, if you want to be a speaker at an event or anything like that, you reach out, you say what you do, you say your idea, you say what it's all about, and then you ask if you would think this would be a good fit. And that's how you create the invitation. Instead of coming in and being like, I would be amazing part of this team, and, like, kind of really just, you know, instead of asking them, it is really tricky. It is a play on words for sure, because, like, obviously if you're applying for a job, you want to say that you are a team player, or if that's what the position requires, or you want to say that you would be a really good fit for their company. But this is where it's depending on what you're reaching out for. And so I like to use the words like, if you think this would be a good fit, please reach out, like, please let me know the details of how we can proceed. I usually ask kind of like those things, like, or, if you think I'm the ideal, like, if this is the ideal candidate you're looking for, please let me know, like, how, I look forward to hearing from you. Anything of those play on words, but you want to, like, you don't want to write it in a way that you assume that you got it. I think I don't know if I'm getting somewhere with this, if this is landing for you, but you don't want to assume that you got it. You want to, because you are creating the invitation. So creating the invitation is basically asking, but it's not asking in a way that you are doubting yourself. It's asking like, hey, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I can do. I would love to be part of this, and I love your space, or I love your company, and this is why I love it. If you think that I am a good fit for this, like, please let me know how we can proceed. And so it's still coming with that place of confidence of your abilities and your gifts, but you are not kind of like, penetrating in without the invitation. You are kind of like, you're hanging out on the outside. And so that is another way you can create invitations, and that is another way that it could come to you. Now, examples of when you don't need to create an invitation, or when the invitation is not obvious. So sometimes the invitation is obvious, like people coming to you. Other times it's not so obvious. Sometimes it is like someone being like, hey, maybe you should do this and this and that. Or sometimes like, it's somebody suggesting you do something, somebody guiding you and suggesting you do something. That can be an invitation as well. So guidance or suggesting of like, hey, maybe you should look into that, or maybe you should talk more about that. So if you do have like a presence on social media, or you talk about certain things, and somebody in the comments section, like, somebody comments and says, hey, I would love to hear more about this, like this topic out, or this sounds interesting, can you tell me more about that? That is your invitation. That's like another little breadcrumb from the universe. So this is where you can follow that. Now we're going to go tap a little bit into the authority part. So invitations, we get a lot of invitations out of projectors, but it doesn't mean we need to say yes to every single one of those invitations, because we don't have the energy to do them all. And also some may not be in alignment. It may not be what we want. So this is where you use your authority. And I'm not going to really dive deep into authorities in this episode, because I really want to focus it on projectors. But authority, you decide with your authority whether this invitation is right for you or not. And it is okay to say no. Now, it could be no, it's never no forever. So that's the other thing I wanted to make a note of. And this is also for all the other types. It's never no forever. When you say no, sometimes a no can turn into a yes down the road. So if you're like, oh, this opportunity sounds amazing, but something is like, my authority is just like, no. And it could be maybe not now. And then trust that if it is something exciting and something that is interesting to you, trust that the universe will provide it for you, maybe in another way, or maybe at another time, or maybe through another party, through another way. Trust that and trust your authority in that. And so if it is a no, hone in on that. Cool. I feel like I've been talking for a while. I definitely dove deep into the invitations. So what do we talk about? Well, we talked about the strategy a whole lot. Talked about the different types of projectors with the energy. Yeah, so I did talk a little bit. So projectors, projectors important to be seen and recognized for the gifts. And it is important for a projector to be in places and environments where they are seen and recognized for their gifts. And sometimes that can it can happen that they are in environments where they are not recognized, or people, you know, couldn't care less about what they do. And I've been in both environments. I've been in environments where I'm seen, recognized for my gifts, and I've been in other ones where I'm not. And sometimes I stay in the ones I'm not, but I just know that they're not my environment, and I just don't let it affect me and push me towards my not self theme. And I try not to be in those environments for a long period of time or repetitively. So what does this all mean? When a projector is seen, recognized for the gifts, like we light up like a freaking Christmas tree. Like we're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. But sometimes we'll find ourselves in situations and environments where we're not. And if those situations end up being more than the majority part of our life, then this is where we would tap into the not self theme of bitterness. So the not self theme bitterness, like when we're bitter, that means we are not in alignment. Now, it doesn't mean that, we cannot be bitter. It is a signpost. Bitterness is a signpost, and being like, wait, why am I bitter? What is causing the bitterness? And this is where we can reflect. And if it is that we are in the wrong environment, in a place where we're not feeling seen or heard or recognized, how can we shift that? How can we walk away? How can we let it go? I think that's another important one. How can we let it go? And assess if that environment is majority of our life or not. So if it's at a workplace that you're not feeling seen and recognized, this is where you can really begin to dive deep as to what is happening there. And maybe there might be a job change, maybe there might be a position change, maybe there is something there for you to shift, because in the place of employment, that is where you spend a lot of your time, right? And so it is important for that, to really tap into that and to see what's happening there and getting curious about. And is it because, sometimes it's like, there's something we're doubting about ourselves, right? Or we're not seeing our gifts, we're not confident in ourselves, and maybe there's some inner work to be done. Other times it is literally that it is not the right place to be. And the reason why I throw both of those in is because as projectors, it is important for us to do the inner work. Projectors were meant to do the inner work. Like, how are we going to guide the rest of the world if we can't, look at our own shit? And it doesn't mean that, we need to be fully healed or fully all good to guide people. No, healing and growth is like lifetime. It never stops. And obviously I always say, come up for breath of fresh air. Don't stay stuck in the healing part all the time. But there are moments where if you find yourself bitter from not feeling seen or recognized, it's not always the other person's fault or the external environment's fault. Sometimes it is some inner work and reflection for you to do on yourself. So kind of throwing that in there as well. And so that is like, if you are not feeling seen or recognized around your friends, again, is there something in there for you to look within yourself, or maybe or is this group not the right group for you? I do know, like, I've been in certain environments, and it's not so much like that. It was people I personally pick and choose, like my friends that I surround. It's been in like, where it's like I know one person and then I'm in their group of friends. And it's like, well, these people are not necessarily like my people, but I can let it go. And I just don't allow it. And I'm still there. I still have a conversation, even though I may not always feel seen or recognized, but those environments are not there all the time. And here's what's really funny is that sometimes in those environments, like I won't feel seen or recognized in some of the situations, but then there'll be that one conversation that I do feel seen and recognized. And this is where I've learned to let go and not allow the bitterness to come in, and not allow the self-blame, and know that this is temporary and that this is not my everyday. This is not all the time. This is every once in a while. So this is like kind of like how that can look like. Now, if there are some environments where it's a hard no, you don't feel good, you're not happy, you're bitter, like it's just like not the right place, trust and leave and shift. Trust that. Especially like, when it comes to like where you are living, like if you are in a home that's like not for you and there's so many things going wrong with it, leave. Again, like, especially if you have an undefined or open spleen, you just tend to stay things longer than you should, stay in relationships longer than you should, stay in a place longer than you should, stay in an environment longer than you should. Know to leave. Know when the signs are like telling you to like go and leave. Just like a little example, like I was snowboarding on the mountain today and started noticing these like small little things, like my bindings kept falling off. Didn't understand why. My bindings kept falling off. My snowboard boots were like, first felt loose and then they felt too tight. And it was just like really busy, lots of people. Visibility wasn't great in some sections. And that I'm going down, because in the past where I've stayed up longer, that's where I've fell and like hurt myself pretty badly. And it's not listening to the signs, not listening to my body, it's not listening to myself. So no, in those environment situations, like to leave, to shift, to move, to get off the mountain, if you're surfing, to leave the ocean, like trust your body and yourself on that. Because staying in it longer, it could cause bitterness, and bitterness oozes out of us. It oozes out of us. Everybody feels it around us. And do you really want to be in a situation where your bitterness is reflecting everybody else, right? And so knowing that, I think I'm gonna stop for now because I feel like I just threw a lot at you. Yeah, if you have more questions about what it means to be a projector, feel free to like send me a DM, put it in the comments here on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, like come find me on Instagram, Julie's Unknown. Super easy. You guys can find me. Any questions you have, like anything more you want to know about what it means to be a projector, like how more can I like guide you, give you different examples, like please feel free. If you have any stories you want to share of like how an invitation once worked for you and what times it didn't, like any of those things, I am open. I would love to continue guiding you. And if I can have like a part one, sorry, this was part one, but if I could have like a part two, part three about projectors and how we navigate this world, like all the better. This is everything that I just spitballed. So I'm self-projected. So it just kind of all freaking comes out, and it sometimes can be really long and other times it's short and sweet and it gets to the point. And if you, and then, so yeah, so that's that. If you definitely want a human design readings, I do offer that. I offer human design readings and embodiment. So if you want to, embodiment piece is like more like, we are together for, like a period of time and really dive into your chart. And basically like I give you examples for things to try, like we experiment, like go try this, like see how this works, see how this resonates, see how this lands. And how I say, like sometimes like projectors, like there are certain types that come into our world to guide, like we're only meant to guide certain groups of people. And now that can obviously change and shifts throughout life. But I've noticed, like in the past few years, ever since getting into human design, a lot of my clients and people I've done human design reading charts for, most of the time, not always, most of the time, it's projectors and manifesting generators. So really interesting of like who comes into a world. Every now and then I'll have like a generator or a manifestor come in. I've met reflectors, but haven't worked with a reflector. But when, generator and manifestor come in, usually generators and manifestors in so far has been like, give me the information. Okay, cool. Now off I go. I'm going to go do my thing. Whereas the mani gens and projectors are like, tell me more. I want to learn more. I want to be in your world. So it's interesting. Now that can change. That can change as I grow and evolve. Like it's not forever, but anyways, this one was for projectors. So if you're a projector and you're like, this stuff resonated, it landed, I want to learn more, come find me. So Julie's Unknown on Instagram, juliesunknown.com. You can find it all in the show notes. And that's it. That's all for today. So thank you so much and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening whenever you're listening. And I will see you next time.